Hey everybody, this is my 40-gallon Black Ghost Knifefish tank, and recently one of my viewers gave me some fish, and among them was one of these gorgeous little Dwarf Neon Rainbowfish. And I only had the one of them. It was so gorgeous that I decided I was going to build the school up a little bit, so I went out and I bought 6 more. They've now been in quarantine long enough that I'm satisfied that they can go in the tank. They came from a good reputable source, so I really didn't feel the need to quarantine them anyway, but just out of habit I did. So it's been about 2 weeks since I got them, and now they're in here in the tank. They've only been in here less than 24 hours. I put them in last night, and it's now today afternoon. So I'd say they're adjusting pretty well. Their colors are starting to come in already. They've got a long way to go. You can see the slightly larger one. That's the one I already had. And then the 6 smaller ones are the ones that I've added to the school. So the younger ones and the smaller ones don't quite have the color that that bigger one has yet. But if that one's any indication, then we've got a lot to look forward to. And remember, that was in here by itself. So now that they are able to school together and interact with each other, I'm really anticipating that color coming in even more. And if we get any kind of spawning conditions, I don't know if I've got any females mixed in there. I'm assuming at least one of them is probably going to be a female. So we should be able to get some spawning colors. And if these are their normal colors, then their spawning colors are just going to be outstanding. So in addition to this, I've also added another fish to this tank, and it was out and about a little bit ago, and now I don't see it anywhere. You may have noticed it swimming around at some point in the video. I've been mesmerized by looking at the rainbow fish, but somewhere in this tank is a Dwarf Pike Cichlid. I got a Crenicichla regani this time. I had a dwarf green pike cichlid in this tank before, which is a Crenicichla compressiceps. And, well, it wasn't in this tank. I had it in my 55-gallon, what is now currently called my T-bar tank, but at the time was an angelfish tank. And I had that for a couple of years. I'm not really sure what happened to it or why it died, but it was a fantastic fish. I really loved my green dwarf pike cichlid, and I believe that one was a female, so it never really colored up very much. Or possibly, in this case, maybe the males are the ones that don't colored up. Generally, the rule of thumb is the males are more colorful, so I'm just going to go with that assumption. Oh, there he is. You can see that little dwarf pike cichlid right there. So that is the regani, the Crenicichla regani. And while it's not going to have the same sort of colors as the green one, it's going to have its own sort of bright spots of color. It's going to have bright red on its tail. We're going to have really bright colors along the dorsal fin. We might get some like golden or yellow colors around the gill flaps. So definitely going to be sort of a different look than what we had with the green dwarf pike cichlid. But this regani is a really, really pretty fish once it matures and starts to color up. Now, I'm not sure if I want to get a mate for it. I don't think I do. I generally don't do paired cichlids. In this very tank, I once had a pair of crebensis. And crebensis are pretty small fish. They're little African cichlids. And while they were not aggressive, they spawned, and suddenly they were little terrors in the tank, and they had every fish in this big tank all clustered up in one corner, hiding from them. It was a nightmare. It just did not work in this tank. So that was a big lesson for me in the idea of keeping pairs of cichlids in community tanks. Doesn't always work out really well. I've even had angelfish pair off in tanks, and as non-aggressive as angelfish tend to be, or I'll say as low on the scale of aggression as far as cichlids go, angelfish are pretty far down the list. But angelfish will kill each other. They'll kill other fish. They get really aggressive when they're spawning. So again, I just tend to stay away from pairs of cichlids because I like to have my peaceful, tranquil community tanks where everybody gets along. I don't necessarily want an aggressive predator tank. I don't necessarily want a tank where a fish is going to be really territorial and aggressive towards other fish. So we'll play it by ear. I'll do a little more research into the regani and find out maybe if they're not that aggressive when they spawn. But most animals, when they've got young to protect, get aggressive. So, even if it's listed as not being particularly aggressive, that's based on what? What kind of scale are we talking about here? Even mild aggression when defending their young can be pretty significant. So probably going to wind up just sticking with that single specimen. I hope I got a male. There he is again, hiding in the back. So I love the idea that it stays pretty small. It won't get bigger than about 5 inches. And the result will be exactly what we've been seeing, is the way he sort of darts in and out and disappears into the shadows and hides in the leaves, and then a moment later you'll see him drift back out. We got one of my rubber lip plecos right there, although I think that might be a clown pleco with the sort of striping down its back. And just a moment ago I saw the other rubber lip pleco out and about over here, but that might have gone and hidden again since I glanced at it. Oh, and speaking of the devil, there's my... And that's exactly what I'm talking about, drifting in and out of the shadows like that. Just love it. Fantastic looking fish. And then I've got these beautiful rainbow fish. So this tank really just stepped up its game as far as looking good. I do have a black ghost knifefish in here. It never comes out. We never see it, but it really is in there. I don't see it at all at the moment. A lot of times if you look down into those caves, you'll see a little bit of pale color undulating back and forth, and that's like the tip of its tail or something. So you do see evidence of it being in there, but as far as it coming out and swimming around the tank, that's just not something that happens. I never see that. There's my little rubber lip coming up out of the darkness back there. And then I once again just saw my little dwarf pike over here somewhere drifting in and out. There he goes. He just came out of that little cave and making his way up front and center. Awesome little fish. Really happy with this one. I also fixed the lighting on this tank. I don't know if you've noticed, if you're a regular viewer, how brightly lit this tank is compared to what it's been as of late. But over the summer, I had one of the fixtures burn out. I've got 2 twin tube fixtures on here, so I've got 4 high output T5 tubes on this tank, and that's kind of why it's so brightly lit. So the 2 new tubes I put on are 6500K, and they are up front. And then the older tubes that have been on here for well over a year now and are probably actually losing a little bit of their quality of their color or quality of their light, I moved them to the back portion of the tank where it's not nearly as important to get that really good color rendering to see these bright colors on these neon rainbow fish. So they've got a color rendering index of 85, which is pretty good. It's not fantastic, but as far as fluorescent lighting goes, 85 CRI is pretty good. So I'm happy with it, and the tank looks great, and of course those rainbow fish in there look absolutely fantastic, and I'm really happy with my little Pike Cichlid. So make sure you're subscribed. You don't want to miss any of the updates on this tank or anything else. Hopefully I will be getting in here soon and treating this tank with that ChemiClean the way I've treated some of my other tanks recently, just for a little bit of maintenance, just to get a little bit of the crud out of there. There's not much in this tank, but if you really get in there and start looking, you can see how I've got some of that green slime, cyanobacteria growing in those plants right there, and I've just got some of that dark crud growing all over everything back there. And the ChemiClean does a good job of just tidying that up and killing it off. And then, of course, once it's dead, the rubber lip plecos and the little clown pleco that are in there, they're just busy as all get out. We got the little clown pleco right there, and then in the back, if you can see all that motion, that's the little rubber lip back there going to town on all the algae. So they're worth their weight in gold. They really do a good job of keeping the tank clean. So there you go, everybody. Once again, I'm going to say thanks for watching, and make sure you're subscribed. That way you won't miss anything I got coming up on this tank or anything else. Don't forget, of course, this one is my Black Ghost Knifefish tank, despite the fact that we never see it.